Hey guys, I'm going to walk you through how to create a pattern swatch today. A pattern swatch is essentially the same thing as a standard swatch, where when you create a shape out of a color, that color is applied and filled from one side of the shape to the other side of the shape on all four sides, or six sides or three sides, no matter how many sides your polygon is. Um, so what I want to do is I want this dot pattern to repeat. And you're like, why the heck would you want your dot pattern to repeat, Jason? Something like this. This is an illustration that I did a while ago. And if you squint your eyes when you see this illustration, you have these dots that happen right here. And if you squint, they turn to a gray color. But in essence, this is all black and white, right? So this entire logo is pure black and pure white. There are no other colors inside this logo. There's no gray, there's no blue, no nothing. So I use this technique a lot for different things, little things here and there. But I do a lot of that stuff. So I like to add a little texture and a little bit of extra elements to the pieces that I'm working on. So I want to go through, and this is a technique that I'm showing you guys of how I've done this in the past, and this one requires a little bit of math, but if you're creating just a standard pattern, there's 100 different ways to do this, guys. The essence really is that you need to find a way to make a pattern to where it repeats, and you have to go through and think about how that pattern is going to kind of lock together. So what I've done is I'm going to jump in here, and I want these dots to repeat in a perfect 1 inch pattern. Okay, so this represents 1 inch, but from center to center on every single one of these dots. Okay, so 1 inch from this center to this center to this center. Okay, and that is 12. But then I had to go through and figure out the math between corner to corner. So that's a 45-degree angle. I had to do some math here and try and figure out what my gaps are without boring you to death. Was able to solve the math equation and figure this out. Not all patterns require math, guys. Only patterns that have a very specific, very non-forgiving essence to them, right? Which this one does not. We need it to be dead on every single time. So what I've done is I've created a box, and that box is back here. Okay, let me find this one here. All right, and that box used to look something like this, where I went through and drew center to center all the way around. The problem is whenever I go to make a pattern out of this, you can see what's going to happen here. I take this swatch and I'm going to just drag and drop it right under the patterns. Let me actually delete these old patterns here. They can all go away. That way we're not copying and pasting onto something that we don't need to copy and paste into, and you guys can see how this works. So if I take this, in theory, and drag it onto my swatches panel, and I create a square, it should repeat like a perfect pattern, right? Wrong. I end up with what's called a moire, where two of these dots are closer than they need to be, right? If you look, there's a pattern within the pattern. There's like this plaid look to it, right? That's because when I create this pattern, it's going to take the very edge, which are these dots, and it's going to slam them right next to each other, okay? So the way that I'm doing this, and you can do this multiple different ways, is I go through and I take my square and I set my square all the way to the edge. Okay, and then I come back in and I delete the extra circles on the outside because I don't need them. Okay, which I've already done there. So now if I take my pattern and drop it into the swatches, that's swatch pattern number 2. You can see, let's do this with a custom shape so you can see how this would fill. It will do it with any shape, and I have a perfect repeating pattern. If I take this and I move it, that pattern will fill in there without me having to draw a bunch of circles, right? And notice how many circles there are inside that. None. But if I was to do this elsewhere, like this, and have a repeating pattern, I've seen people do this before to where they'll take a circle and they draw something and they go, okay, we draw a circle and we want that circle, oh, I'm still in my pattern, sorry guys. I want that circle to be this far apart, but I want it to be that way for 15 circles in a row. They duplicate that multiple times. And then they try to go through and duplicate this multiple times. And that's fine, but if you have a really large shape, this is going to be really monotonous, right? So if I take a circle, blow it up huge, I can take that pattern and fill it in that circle. It's kind of trippy, yeah? So patterns are cool. You can make patterns out of halftones. You can make patterns out of dots, squares, skulls, flowers, you know, you can do all sorts of stuff. So experiment a little bit. The way that I taught myself patterns, guys, is not by listening to someone like me talk to you about it, but to go through and say, hey, I want to do something similar to this, and typing it into Google and finding someone who's built a pattern that's looking like the thing that I want to build. And there's tons of ways to do it, guys. So, but this is just how to create a pattern. I chose to show you how to do it with a halftone swatch because I like to use halftones. And yeah, so there you go.